welcome to Unholier, our podcast about the religious indoctrination, cults, and judgments that are out there just making their way into all parts of our life. And today it's just you and me. We usually have a guest on, but what's so great about these times with you and me, we get a chance to really delve into that high level overview of what it means to be involved in these different groups that are so pervasive and controlling of your life. Like they just
Mm.
seep into, I say, like, I grew up steeped in the Baptist tea where that's just what you were surrounded by. We're going to be talking today about purity culture, where it is that, gosh, it affects every part of your life. Like I said, not
Mhm.
just visits to church or the times that you're reading your Bible. It is like so intense. If you like
Mm.
to start us out and explain to people what purity culture is, for those who've never heard of it.
Oh gosh. I'm not much of a wordsmith, so I'm not going to give you like an urban dictionary definition of purity
Mhm.
culture, which there probably is. I would say probably a pretty entertaining urban dictionary definition of purity culture, which I
Right.
might look up later. But I would say, as far as purity culture goes, us, like you said, raised in the Baptist tea, steeped in the Baptist tea, as you called it. I
Yeah.
like that. I think growing up in the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church, we were really taught, especially as women, that we have to save ourselves for marriage, that we're not allowed to have any kind of physical contact with a boy whatsoever. We're responsible for the men and boys around us. If they fall or are lusting after us, it must be something that we're doing wrong as women or girls. So, with that comes a lot of restrictions and responsibilities with the way that we look and how we are dressed and told how to carry ourselves and all of that, which is very oppressive and just a difficult atmosphere to be surrounded by, because you feel like as a woman something's wrong with you. You must be like almost a demon of sorts, because everything revolves around, if you do this, then this is going to happen and it's going to be
Yeah.
your fault. And then that translates into later on in life when you actually do get married. If you do get married, you're able to have intimacy with your husband or your wife, and you are told your whole life you can't do this, you can't do that, and then all of a sudden you're allowed to. And then what that translates into usually is a really bad, failed physical relationship with
Yes.
now, can you see I'm talking about what my own experience is, but I have talked to many
Oh
other
yeah.
people who have
Yes.
experienced similar
Mhm.
situations, where it's just this vicious cycle of oppression, obligation,
Yeah.
restraint, restriction, taboo subjects, which, if we're being honest, it shouldn't be taboo, because it's all created by God, right? So why shouldn't we be able to have these open discussions about sex and intimacy in our bodies, and what we in a way that can be a healthy way, and to teach our children and our young kids about how to have sex and how to have it responsibly. And I think that is I don't think that's the responsibility of the church. I think it's the responsibility of a parent to the child. But the problem is within the IFB and within a lot of these, not just religions, but cultures, even, a lot of these parents don't want to have those uncomfortable conversations with their kids. And so
Right.
it just trickles down and then translates out into society, into churches.
Mhm.
And I think that it's healthy to have those conversations. It's not always easy, but I think it's time that we do have those conversations. And I'm so glad that you and I get to have this opportunity to talk about it as two women who were raised in the IFB,
Right.
who went through that purity culture within the IFB and what our own experiences are. And I say, well, let's get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
I'm all about it.
And I think that was a really great definition. A good overview because what people may not realize is that it really does affect so much of that, like the taboos, what you're not supposed to talk about, what you're not supposed to listen to or read
Yeah.
or do. And then all of a sudden, you're supposed to be able to be allowed. Like marriage is the magic key that opens the door to the
Yeah.
room.
Yeah, and really all it is Pandora's box because
Right.
it's whatever's in that box is getting let out, and it's either
Yeah.
going to be the good, the bad, the
I
ugly.
know. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, something that's so interesting here for people, and we'll talk about this in other episodes, and even for our survivor guests who've been on, they have been in a lot of pressure to, with regards to their sexuality and who they are as people. And in fact, to a certain extent, this is sometimes what brings them to a troubled teen home. Starting
Mhm.
off, I want to say right now, you are wearing something that is very taboo for purity culture, and it's your tank top. And I'm wearing
Yeah,
bracelets and I have too many earrings. And
same.
yeah, oh, and so where people are like, how is that a big deal? It is symbols of the idea that you are lusting and that you are wanting to cause a man to lust. Like my bracelets are somehow drawing people's attention to my hand and making noise. Like somehow I'm all of a sudden going to be a belly dancer right now.
Yeah.
Earrings like flashing and all the noise. Like purity culture says that is way too much bling. It is inappropriate. And like your shoulders being shown, and where I want to do a whole episode on what not to wear, like clothes
Yeah,
in the
because
church.
even the length
Yes.
of where this hits, it's not even that
Yeah.
low. It's there.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I know.
But yeah,
Yes.
we were told 3 fingers past your
Uh-huh.
clavicle. You can't go any
Yeah.
lower than that.
Oh, I never had that, but I did have two. I had to have at least three or two fingers on my the I was not allowed to wear a tank top until sophomore year in high school. It's so stupid.
Mm.
So stupid in the heat, but as long as my bra strap did not show, because
Mm.
that would like somehow cause guys to go crazy. I
Yeah.
swear I tried it in high school. They did not go crazy. They managed to control themselves with
Yeah.
my bra strap.
Yeah.
But it's the that's instilled in girls from a very early age. And again, the necklaces or what you're wearing, like it can't be too flashy, too much makeup, how you do your hair, or even like the color of your hair, where you're going to dye it or whatever. It's all very leading towards lust, where
Yeah.
and it's not your lust. Like they don't care about women's lust and what you just
Right.
think it's that somehow men cannot control themselves. And I don't, did you ever hear of analogies like over and over from the pulpit? There were so many different analogies about like, guys' lust and what
Oh yeah.
sex outside of marriage could do to a person. This is where like the tragedy and the horror stories come in of
Of course.
all the bad things that could happen to a person
Yeah. Yeah,
surrounding
because
sex.
yeah, because that's what they do. They bring in like the fear mongering. And if you do this, then you're going to be in danger of God's punishment. If you cause a man to lust after you and he falls into trap or sin because
Right.
of something that you wore or whatever, that's your
Yeah,
that's
it
your
is
fault.
your fault. And the way it makes it seem is like they are walking along and then bam, they just fall into a big hole. And then
Yeah.
usually there are spikes at the bottom and it destroy it. Like they
Yeah.
have no control over any at all, these guys. They cannot
Yeah.
see it coming and
Yeah.
then somehow get out of the way. It's just
Hmm.
truly that they're blindsided.
Yeah.
Somehow they saw the edge of your shoulder and then bam, they were lusting and
Yeah.
there's no coming back from it. Even
Because that's a trap. We're setting the traps. It's like we're the hunter
yeah.
and we're setting the traps. The
Mhm.
men are just falling right into our trap.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though? Did you ever hear the analogy of if you kiss a guy before marriage, you're kissing another woman's husband?
Yes. Yeah. And or if you do anything before marriage, you are in bed with them plus all the other people they've been in, plus all the people that you're ever going to be in with. And then your bed is just full of maybe 150 people. Like because it's all of their people and all of their people. And it's so crowded in that bed. It's not just the
Yes.
two of you.
Yes.
Stupid.
Yes. I've
Um,
heard that too, which is So crazy. Yeah. I think it's crazy too, just even from the opposite end of the coin, too, talking about even the boys and the men,
Yeah.
where they make them out to be like animals, that they can't control
Yes. Yeah.
themselves. And everything is just, it's really hypersexualized because they're drawing so much attention to it. And in the youth groups, they're like, men, you're basically not going to be able to help it. And women,
Right.
girls, it's your responsibility to make sure that you cover up all areas of your body. And if you don't, then it's your fault if this happens. And so
Right.
there's a lot of there's a lot of weight with that as a young
Yeah.
person, especially I was a virgin until I got married. I got married at 21 years old, 22. And there was a lot of just weight put on me with that. Like I had to maintain my purity, and I
Yes.
did until I was married. And then, of course, if anyone's listened to my episode at this point, you'll find out that did not serve me well at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, it caused a lot of problems for me, and I regret waiting. I will say that I do regret waiting. I
Yeah.
was dating somebody in college very seriously. We did have a physical relationship. He was the first guy I ever had a physical relationship with, but we never had sex. And I don't know, I regret it because
Yeah.
there's a lot of questions because of everything that I went through. I'd have a
Yeah.
surgery. And so David had asked me a question like, do you think if you would have ended up with the other guy, if you would have had to go through that? And I said, no, I don't.
Yeah.
But
It really makes a difference.
yeah,
They a lot of emphasis within the purity culture is on the idea that, okay, if you save yourself, this person will save themselves, and then
yeah,
sex will be amazing on
yeah.
marriage night and every night after that. But it just sets up these terrible expectations for
Yeah,
something that
totally.
it leaves no room for normal relationships and marriage and the take of, oh my gosh, I'm so tired, or I'm on my period, do any of this stuff,
Yeah.
or we're sick,
Yeah.
or injuries, or what. It doesn't matter where it is all about like the expectation. So,
Yeah.
like for your experiences on that wedding night was terrible. And then your relationship, like it set it up for failure as a component of it. But then
Mhm.
also like people like me who have been sexually assaulted when they were kids, there's no room for ever coming back from that either.
Mhm.
Where, okay, the purity culture says, okay, you are not pure anymore because you're not a virgin. And so they just have put this shame on you. And it doesn't belong to us, to you, to me, anybody who got roped into these
Mhm.
terrible, gosh, ways, this rhetoric. And
Mhm.
what's interesting is that you mentioned the demons where you were looked at like you are truly a bad person if you done this stuff, even if somehow it was not your fault before that
Mhm.
point, or the way you dress or the way you look or what you're doing that's somehow causing these men to lust. Somehow it's your fault. But what's interesting is that I have had so many people within the church say to me now, oh, you have opened the door to demons because you were
Mm.
sexually active before marriage. And I'm like, none of that was anything of my choice. Like those demons don't stick to me, girl. They can go over to all those other guys who did this stuff. Like it's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't belong to me, but somehow women are like, we're the ones with the Velcro that
Yeah.
attached to, like, they just find us.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Yeah. It is so stupid. And you know what's crazy too? When you were in the church, did you ever experience any young person having to get up and apologize to the church for being
Yes.
impure?
Oh my gosh,
Okay.
awful.
I have a question. So when that happened, was it
Just a
both?
girl. Yeah, I
Okay.
knew you were bad. Oh my
I'm
gosh,
telling
we're
you.
in sync. It was just the girl. She
Yeah.
was pregnant. And I mean,
Yeah.
this happened multiple times.
Yeah.
And they made her get up and apologize, where
Yeah.
the guy was required to stand up was at their wedding, where then this is their duty is to marry that girl. And that's their responsibility, but the girl is the one that has to get up and apologize
Yeah.
for what she's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
This has happened more than once in
Yeah.
lots of different churches.
Same. Yeah.
And it is never, sometimes the guy doesn't even go there. He doesn't even have to go. The girl is just this poor, I mean, it's just so humiliating and embarrassing. Like, I feel
Mm.
horrible for her.
Yeah. I know. Isn't that crazy?
Mhm.
That's like the standard. Like
Yeah.
it's the girl's problem. She's the one
Right.
that got pregnant. She's got to stand up there and she's got to give a reason and apologize and be humiliated as a teenager or a young woman. And
Yeah.
then where's the guy? Why
Yeah.
isn't he up there? Why doesn't he have to say anything? He gets
Yeah.
off scot-free. How is
Yeah.
that right? And then they make the kids get married and it always ends up in divorce
I
when they
know.
get old enough. It's like, what's the point?
Yeah. It's so terrible.
It is.
It's such, so I think of purity culture, it just reminds me of a huge factory, like cookie cutter, stamping out these people. If you get caught in any of their mechanisms, you get crushed. And if you don't do it exactly as they say, and I remember, did you ever get told, like, there was this book, I Kissed Dating Goodbye?
Yes, I was just thinking about that
I
book.
know.
Yes.
So do you know, so at the time that was like the gold standard of like how it's supposed to be. And I was like, two thoughts. One, I was thinking, dang it, I do not want to wait until my wedding day to be kissed. And what if Jesus comes back before I get kissed?
Same. Oh my God, that's so funny. Same here. Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
And so I had to do focus on the family was another really big influence in that. And like I had to set up a contract with my dad for courting and no kissing. The boy would have to ask my dad to date. And then you're supposed to wait until the wedding day to kiss, not just actual sex. But you know, that guy now, I think he's Joshua Harris. He's divorced.
Yes.
It's insane. And I think he's gay.
Weird.
He's gay.
Weird. He's gay?
Yeah. Or he's
Oh my
rapist.
gosh, no
One of the
way.
two of them. So hold on, I'm gonna look it up because I Kissed Dating Goodbye, Joshua Harris.
According to Wikipedia, I Kissed Dating Goodbye is a 1997 book by Joshua Harris.
Yeah. Yeah. So he is now, so I think he, so he does not consider himself a Christian and
Wow.
at all. Hold on. Is Joshua Harris from I Kissed Dating Goodbye gay?
So now he's not even in church. See,
Right.
look at that. Look at what the purity culture did to him. And he had such an impact during that time on the purity culture because he wrote that book.
Yeah.
Plus he was a good looking dude. So all the chicks were like, oh my gosh, I gotta get this book.
Yeah. Oh, it's so awful. That book.
There was another book that came out when I was either in high school or college. And it was about, I can't remember the name of it. I can see the cover of it, but it was about the purity culture too, saving yourself for marriage. It was written by a woman to like young girls or young women, very big in the IFB. I cannot remember the name of it to save my life. But gosh, what was it? I remember reading that thing over and over again when I was at Bob Jones University.
What I had just read is that he wanted to apologize to the gay community for excluding them and for putting so much pressure on them for the I Guess Dating Goodbye book and how it like really caused a lot of problems for the gay community. But what's interesting is that the article that I had originally read when this came out was like, oh, he must be gay. And so that's what stuck in my mind. But you know what? That's another problem with the purity culture is that if you stand up for another woman or another man, all of a sudden somehow you must be gay or whatever. And so I feel bad for thinking that for reading that the wrong way because you support a community doesn't mean that all of a sudden
that all of a sudden that is your
that's who
identity.
you are. Yes. And what's interesting about purity culture is it doesn't matter who you're attracted to. It's like no matter what, it's inevitable somehow. And then even the idea that if you even say the words like, I like this person, or I like this girl, or I like this guy, or I do any of this stuff, it's inevitable that it's going to happen. And there's all only black and white. There is nothing in between or room for anything else that could possibly be under your control.
Yeah. Were you familiar with Jack Hyles growing up? There's a sermon where he's preaching and he says that if a man goes to prison for, the girl should be right next to him in the stall because
No,
she's just as guilty as he is.
no way.
Yes, I swear to God, he did say that.
Who slew all of these poor kids that are the girls pregnant before they married? Caused boys to get so stirred up passionately that they'll rape a girl. Brother, you listen to me. For every single man that goes to prison for rape, there ought to be right beside him a half-naked girl in the next cell.
Oh my gosh.
But that's the thing. Like, if a guy rapes you, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Your fault. You weren't dressed appropriately. You must not have had pantyhose on that day.
Yeah.
That's why you got raped. That's why. It's your
Mhm.
fault.
It's so crazy how those excuses are what's used as to justify situation and behavior. You know, I like to say that in the church, girls are taught if you do this and this, you'll be kept safe or pure. If guys do this and this, they'll be forgiven. There's no forgiveness for the girls, but the guys, somehow it was somebody else's fault, or it's okay that happened, or you did that, God forgives you. Back to what we were talking about, I only ever heard one guy stand up and talk about the stuff that he was doing, where we had all these girls that had to get up and say, oh, I'm so sorry, I led my guy astray and now I'm pregnant or whatever. It was one guy, and he had to get up and say, I have a porn addiction. And
Oh, wow.
he said, but I've turned my life over to God and I'm forgiven and I'm fine now, or whatever. God saved me from it. And that was it. And he had to do that in our huge church. I feel really bad for him.
See, I don't even know how I feel about that, just because that's like, why do you have to announce that to the whole church?
Yeah, it's so true. And what's random is that no one ever got up and said, I have a shopping addiction.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
I've gotten so many parking tickets that I'm in danger of going to jail for not my unpaid parking fines. Like, no one ever gets up and repents of that. It's all just
Yeah.
sexual
Sexual.
stuff.
Yeah. It's all sexual. Yeah. And the thing is too, like, I was thinking about this the other day. You have these preachers and these youth pastors who get up and they yell and scream at the congregation or the young people about, you should not like cause a boy or a man to lust after you. You shouldn't have sex until marriage. So they're saying all this stuff, which is only just drawing more attention to it.
Yeah.
And so when you tell a young person, don't do this, don't do that, but when you can, it's going to be really awesome. But it has to be the way that God wants you to do it. What do you think they're going to do? They're young people. They're going to want to know what it's like, especially if you're like, ultimately, within the bounds of marriage, it is wonderful, but you can't do it until then. And if you do, then, it's going to ruin your life and all this stuff. What do you think a young person's going to do? I don't know. I just think that it draws more attention to it instead of actually having a healthy discussion around sex. There's no healthy discussions around sex in the church at all.
Yeah, none. I think I mentioned in one of our episodes, or maybe it was on the TikTok live, like I didn't find out about like good sex until I was a junior in high school. And the gal that I worked with at this daycare, she had all these romance novels and it was so fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But then my mom went and cut all the sex scenes out. Oh, it's so crazy. Such great books of like women empowerment and just like amazing love stories, where that is actually a key component that is never talked about in the church either. Sex goes with marriage. Sex plus marriage is the way it's supposed to be. And then love is between you and God. It's not ever really talked about, like relationship with the person that you're supposed to be marrying. It's all
Yeah.
sex.
Because when they get to those verses, it's just wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands.
Yeah,
It's like the husbands are just to be submitted to, and the wives are just to shut up and do what they're told. And it's, oh, but what about the part where it says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it? I don't know. They tend to leave that one out. It's like,
right.
to me, that says, okay, how did Christ love the church? He died for the church. So to me, the ultimate love that a husband has towards his wife is you would give everything, including your life, to that woman. You are putting her so far up on a pedestal that nothing is going to knock her down because you are protecting her and defending her till your death, period. But they don't ever talk about that. The wife is supposed to be a subservient little homemaker, mother, maid, whatever. And that's all she's good for. And that goes into with purity culture too, just even within the marriage relationship. You're not even allowed to look at another man as a married woman. I don't know. It's crazy. But then you have people like Lester Roloff who take private jets with other women. I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know if you know this. He had a mistress that lived on the farm.
Was her name Miss Elaine?
No.
It wasn't her.
No. He had a mistress.
Oh, I feel like he had more than one.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
No, he had a kid with her. And the kid was in the program with our friend Barb. And she lived,
Oh, no way.
lived on Trailer Row. That's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
it was always very suspect to me that every time we talked to survivors from the Rebecca home, no one really ever saw Mrs. Roloff. She was just in the house. She didn't go to the church. She wasn't like out and about. How is that okay? Especially in the IFB, they teach you don't ever be alone with the opposite sex. But then here is one of their like main poster people, Lester Roloff, going off on a private jet with these young women and this single woman, Miss Elaine, and then all these women with the quartet. It's like, where was his wife? His wife wasn't with him. But that's okay. That's okay. Because he was a man of God. So it was okay for him. It's okay for him to do all of that, but not for two people to be alone in a room together at all, ever. Can't.
Yeah.
It looks bad.
I know. And it like somehow they're above those type of impulses or situations because they run a really large church that's very profitable.
Conveniently.
Right. Convenient. So convenient. You know, what's interesting about purity culture is that it did shape the way that I have a lot of conversations. Like it's sometimes even hard to say the word sex still. And like I noticed when we're talking about, we're like, sex, like you have to, it's very hard to overcome though all that has been instilled in us and the way we've been groomed and trained to even say that word. It's so interesting. You mentioned where pastors and churches are supposed to be the ones that teach sex education. I remember in fourth grade, we were supposed to have a class on periods and sex and changing bodies and all that stuff. And my parents refused to let me go. And so stuff
and
like
this is in school, you were supposed to have that?
Yeah. So they refused. They just didn't want the school to give us that information. I think it's probably because that stuff was already happening at home. And so they're like, we don't want her to know what's happening or bring it up. Oh, hey, what about when this happens in my house? And they could get in a lot of trouble. I think a lot of purity culture is designed to keep secrets and keep quiet stuff that's really happening. I wonder who coined the word purity culture. That's really, I think it's been around forever, but
I don't know. I thought maybe that Joshua Harris had, but I could be wrong. But that's when it really got popular. It really turned into this whole like movement of abstinence and waiting till marriage and don't even kiss the opposite sex until marriage, the marriage altar. And it's, what are you supposed to do when he like gets down on a knee and proposes? Are you just supposed to be like, thank you?
I know, and you're like,
or
the hug where you're not allowed to touch most of your body, like
yeah. You're like,
Right.
thanks.
Yeah. So great, dude. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. I
Oh
mean,
man.
it's crazy. And then you have even after, so like even after I divorced, and I talk about this in my episode too, is that I went into a little bit of a party time where I
Yeah.
was like, me and my girlfriend were just like going out dancing on the weekends and like living life finally and having a good time and maybe meeting a guy here or there and actually experiencing sex for the first time in a way that I had never, and it was enjoyable. And I'm like, okay, this I can handle. I like
Uh-huh.
this.
Yeah.
But then like he was calling me an adulterer, even though I was divorced from him at that time.
Oh, man.
I was a filthy woman. I was an adulterer. I was a Jezebel. I was all those negative, bad things. Even though I was a grown woman, I was a mom, I was a responsible adult at that point. I was divorced and single. I was still looked at as you're dirty. You're a bad person. And it's all part of this whole purity culture idea that
Yeah.
you are not allowed as a woman to experience sex in a positive way unless it is with your husband within the bounds of a marriage bedroom.
Right.
And it's just not true. It's just not true.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's not true. And what's interesting is you say that, I mean, I've even heard some pastors, there's like Mark Driscoll or whatever, who women shouldn't even enjoy it. That's not their role.
What?
Yeah. What did he call
Oh, that's
them? They're
cute. That's
just,
cute.
God, he calls women
And you know
something.
what? You know what? Okay. He's just telling on himself then, because that to me says projection, because his wife probably has said she doesn't enjoy it with him. And so he's probably then taking that to the pulpit and telling thousands of people, none of you should be enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What he said is he calls women penis homes. Have you heard of that?
No. What?
Yeah. Penis homes. That's what he calls women. So that's his wife. Like how
What?
awful.
Why does anybody listen to these people? I don't understand.
I don't either. And what's so interesting calling them that is I had to look it up because what I wanted to call it was the penis palace, but that actually makes me think of something like really fun gay place. Penis palace. Or a really great sex toy shop.
David's gonna have a blast with this episode.
Mark Driscoll wants to call it penis palace. He was like trying it out in his sermon prep beforehand, and then his wife is like, no.
He's probably, can I trademark this? Can I trademark this term? Oh my gosh.
Background, she's don't call it that. Don't call it a penis palace. And he's okay, penis home, penis house. Again, that sounds like a gay reality show. Penis house. No, dear, still, you can't call it that. And he's okay, what about penis home? And she's still really bad, but I can't stop you.
I feel like the penis palace has a little bit more of a ring to it, but
No.
I don't know. Just
It
saying.
sounds like a fun place. Like you want to get disco and there's smears on the wall.
It does sound like a fun place. It is not, though, I assure you. Especially for his wife, I'm sure. It's not a palace. That does sound like a reality TV show. Oh my gosh, that is amazing. We just coined a new term, penis palace.
Yeah.
I love it. Just a little FYI for those listening, this is an R-rated podcast. There is no filter and we do not censor. So if you can't handle it and you're an adult, like I do not even know what to tell you. Go check yourself into therapy if you can't handle it.
Yeah. Words like sex, penis.
Yeah, words like
Period.
sex and penis and period. And
Right.
I don't know.
Those are like the basic ones. Like we're
Yeah.
so trained to stop talking about it. Like
I know.
it's so difficult. Oh my
It is.
gosh. I love that I can even have these conversations because it took a really long time for me
Yeah.
to be able to just be more open about stuff like this. And have these conversations. Like I've definitely never had them in church at all.
No.
No way. And if you're gonna have like women's night, it is not about sex. It's about crocheting or crafts, scrapbooking, and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Or how you should be for your husband, what you should be
Right.
doing, how you should be
Yes.
acting. And
Yeah, exactly.
and they're all like, okay, ladies. They all
Mhm.
do you ever notice this? I just have to say, this is just a side note. This isn't even about purity culture. This is about how some of these women even talk within the church.
Yeah.
Like they have to talk like little church mice. They just
Mhm.
got to be so proper and prim and so
Yes.
feminine all the time, like a little whisper,
Mhm.
because we have to have a meek and quiet spirit, you guys.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just can't. There was so much of that at Bob Jones University. Like these women would literally talk like that. Like they were whispering. I'm like, I can't hear you. Speak
Yeah.
up. Talk like a normal person.
We know those are the ones that I feel like would be very good at S&M. I mean, like
Oh,
very good with a
yeah.
whip and
Yes.
ball and chain.
Hey,
Ball, I don't know.
ball and chain.
That's a marriage.
They do have a ball and chain, Susie. It's called their husband. Oh my God. David's going to be like, what in the actual?
Oh my gosh, this is so funny. Okay. Yeah, that you can tell I don't know very much about S&M, the ball and chain. And
Yep.
yes.
Yes.
Gaps. But other than that, ball and chain.
We're talking about it all here today, guys.
Oh my gosh, this is so funny. Yeah, like I think one of the reasons I ended up wanting to go to a not like secular college, a non-Christian school, is that I was very looking forward to being able to kiss a guy, to have like fairly, hopefully normal dating relationships. I think like you, I didn't have my first boyfriend until I was 19, my first kiss.
Mhm.
Even then, there's just so much pressure that somehow God is about to strike you dead with
Yeah.
just kiss somebody. They are not your husband. They're the idea that you're going to marry. The idea that I was going to marry this person just wasn't even on my radar. But once stuff like I Kissed Dating Goodbye and other books, and within like Campus Crusade for Christ that we were in, there was a lot of pressure that the person you're supposed to date is supposed to be your husband. And I remember this one time, I'm still friends with this guy. He had called and wanted to go out for pizza. And I just went into this long launch of, I know that you're a Catholic. I'm not really sure if I should go out with you. Like, I don't know how it would work with our kids and all this stuff. And he was like, Susie, it's just pizza. It's just
Right.
dinner. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm ridiculous. This poor guy, I just didn't know how to have a fairly normal dating relationship or
Yeah.
just date in general. I love that you did that after your divorce, because it's important to know how to do that.
Yeah, honestly. And if nothing else, just even for the social skills, like I didn't have the ability to really interact with the opposite sex on a different level,
Yes.
because you're told if you're hanging out with the opposite sex, you better be courting him. Like,
Right. For
you're not
marriage.
just hanging out. Yeah, you're not just hanging out. You're going to either court that person, or you're going to just say hi and bye and wave and have a very like surface friendship with somebody. Like, oh, good to see you. Okay, bye.
Or group date. And then
Oh,
again,
group
the
date.
side hug. That's all you get is a group date and a
Yes.
side hug until you're ready to court that person. And
Yeah.
then in my case, ask my dad if he could.
Yeah, and you still
Yeah.
have to have a chaperone.
Oh yeah.
Like, you still have to have somebody there. You can't just go by yourself. God forbid you go out with another person on an actual date. But within the IFB, you have to have one, your parents' permission to court that person, and then you have to have a chaperone, or you're going on group dates with people. And then you're not allowed to go to the movies. You're not allowed to go dancing. You're not allowed to do anything normal. Basically, your options are you're going putt-putting or you're going bowling. You're going out to dinner, like out to
Right.
eat at a restaurant.
And so I'm going to do some interpreting for people who have never heard of this stuff before, because frankly, everything you just said, going dancing or going to the movies, yes,
Movies, yeah.
that could all lead to sex, people,
Yeah.
to sex, especially heavy petting in a theater, which
Yes.
is wonderful. I encourage people to do it. The thing is, it could. According to people in church, it could. Not every movie I've been in has that happened to, but the ones that okay. Anyways,
Yeah.
those type of things, as well as staying up late with that person. Like if the date went long, like somehow that's when it's going to lead to sex. Like all
Yeah.
of it, inevitably, somehow, like a magnet, you're just drawn to sex. They never assumed that could happen in the middle of the day or even in the morning, where it's
Correct.
all just nighttime stuff.
Yeah, anything after 10 o'clock, you're open. Satan comes out of his little cave, out of his lair, and floats around and just finds people to influence and to be like, have sex.
Right. Just
Do
at
it.
night. Like he's
Yeah.
off during the day.
He's
He
off
sleeps
during the day.
in. Right. And then it's just
It's like
at
a
night.
vampire.
That's so funny, because even where you're like, don't invite Satan in, vampire.
Yeah.
You open the door to Satan with the sex
Yeah.
because he's a vampire.
Hey, you remember the commercials that they used to play on TV? It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?
Yeah.
That's what they're talking about. Somehow they knew that at 10 o'clock, that's when Satan comes out of his lair and tries to find teenagers to influence.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Teenagers, college kids. It's totally a thing. Yeah. I definitely grew up in that crazy environment where, yeah, Satan was a vampire and could come get you and influence you.
No, he wasn't a vampire. He was a lion. So there's that.
Oh my gosh. A roaring lion seeking to devour.
What's crazy too, Jesus is also a lion.
That's right.
Very confusing. That was very confusing. Yeah. So you're like, wait, maybe the lion outside my car window is Jesus. Or maybe it's the devil.
Jesus takes the wheel. He's in the
Jesus
car.
takes the wheel. That's right.
That reminds me of what's that show? Talladega Nights. And to teach him how to drive, he has a cheetah in the car. There you go. There's Jesus. If he can learn to drive a cheetah, he could be a race car driver. Hey, Satan's outside of the car. One of these episodes, we're going to talk about rock and roll and music. That is how Satan enters the car. Yeah, so many traps, so many ways that you just constantly got to be on the lookout for.
Yes.
Satan.
Satan is entering the car. When you turn that radio dial and Tom Petty comes on.
Yes, it's going to happen.
You wreck me, baby.
Right. The thing is that, somehow Satan and sex are inevitable, like when you're in certain situations and with certain people, and then like it's just going to happen. And then the music comes on and there's no control anymore.
Yeah, rock music goes with sex.
That's true.
So sex, drugs, rock and roll, you're going to become a drug addict. You're going to, first of all, you probably turned your radio dial to an FM station and you were listening to the wrong kind of music.
Yeah.
Then you got into drugs, which then you had sex and now your life is ruined. So it all leads from that. Right. That's where it all starts.
Right. Yeah. According to the church, like there's these steps that somehow once you get started on that path, it's going to totally happen. And what's so crazy is that there's no answer for redemption or change, or that you are somehow able to be in control of yourself and also no like accountability for the guys, especially that are not that, and they are just predators. That's all they are. It's not even about the fact that they are just love sex or whatever. Usually it's just straight up predators.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's not talked about in a healthy way, which I think that is a big missing component. It's okay. I think you definitely should have the conversations around sex and around like the human body, male, female, pleasure zones, all of that. None of that is taught at all. And like I
Right.
said, I'm not even saying it's the church's responsibility, but what I am saying is it isn't the church's responsibility to tell you that you can't do something, to say you can't have sex before marriage, or
Right.
you're going to ruin your life, or you're going to never find the person that God has for you, or you are going to
Yeah.
be cursed, or you're going to be this dirty, unpure person.
Mhm.
That's just simply not true. And
Right.
so they refuse to talk about these subjects in a healthy way, but
Mhm.
they just push it on as some horrible thing that has to wait until marriage. And then all of a sudden, this wonderful thing that a woman isn't even supposed to be allowed to enjoy anyway. So
Right.
what does it matter?
Yeah.
It's messed up, really. There's really nothing to look forward to as a woman within the church other than having children. And then that's really hard too. And they don't really talk about how difficult it is to be a parent. It's just, there's really nothing in my eyes, there's really nothing positive that they teach you as a girl, as a woman within the church, because you're
Yeah.
just there.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Say, if they're going to give guidance about sex, then they need to explain all the details and all aspects of it, not just their own.
Mhm.
What's interesting is right now, and I think it's always been like this to a certain extent, where like the 10 Commandments and this stuff that's written and put up on a list either in a courthouse or in schools now, none of those are like specifically bold font. They're all on the same level, and
Mhm.
those are just the top 10 stuff about being gay or whatever, not even on that list. I'm just going to throw that out there. But kissing, not on that list. All it says is don't commit adultery once you're married. And then I think that's a great idea. If you care for the person and you enjoy their company and you want to be around them, like, you care for them. It's all about love again. And
Yeah.
so there's nothing really there about sex before marriage. There's nothing really there about men come first and then women are penis palaces. It's all just it's all just about love and care and kindness, as opposed to the way the church makes it out to be. You know what I mean? The emphasis on sex is so overwhelming compared to all the other 10 commandments.
Mhm.
That's just my 2 cents on 10 commandments. But
Yeah.
the idea that here we're going to have a group of people, all these kids that are having it in school now, like they're going to see all of those. And then it's going to be really confusing when they get in church and all they hear about is like the one idea that a pastor thinks is more important than all the rest out of all of
Mhm.
the verses in the Bible. It's stupid. I don't know. I think one of the reasons I stopped going to church right now at this time in my life is that, like, I didn't want my kids who have also been through some stuff, and for me to be in a situation where I don't ever want people who have been mistreated to hear that it is somehow their fault. And it seems like there's no cap on that at church. I think there's just too much emphasis on the wrong stuff, and it really hurts people. I know we were going to church up to a few years ago, and when I was really struggling with some of the memories and flashbacks of stuff that happened when I was a kid, like, I went to our pastor for help, and he was horrific. There was no care or kindness there. Sexual assault survivors, and I think that is awful.
Yeah, that is terrible. And I think that a lot of churches, the pastors, they're not trained to counsel.
Mhm.
And counseling is a very large part of being a pastor.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of pastors miss the boat. I think that it should be a requirement for a pastor to take courses in counseling and learn how to listen and learn how to give like objective advice instead of just, oh, this is what the Bible says. Sometimes people don't want to hear that. They just want to have somebody listen to them and not give them advice, even. But
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever talked to a pastor. My dad was a pastor, but I've never really talked to a pastor. So was yours who didn't give their advice even when they weren't asked for it. They just have to give their
Right.
advice. They can't just
Yeah.
listen. And it's always got to be followed with a slew of Bible verses, of course. But I think that pastors are definitely missing the boat on a lot of this. And I don't know. I think that we can't not talk about subjects within the church just because they're taboo.
Yeah.
Avoiding subjects or bringing too much attention to a subject is only going to cause people to be like curious about it, especially young people. And like I said, I don't necessarily think it's the church's responsibility to educate people about sex and their bodies and stuff like that. But I don't think that they should be also telling people not to do something with their body. Hey, if you're, I'll be honest, like I think I've already said this, but I wish I would have with my college boyfriend, because then I probably would have had a totally different mindset and outlook about sex.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And I think that with my current husband, we were definitely intimate before we were married. And I was of the thought, try before you buy kind of thing, because you have to be compatible in the bedroom if you're going to spend the rest of your life with this person.
Yeah.
And sex is a big part of of a healthy relationship. You have to be compatible in that way. And if you're not, like, I don't know, I've lived that life and it's not pleasant. I don't know. And I recently had a conversation with a girl that went to my church growing up, and she's recently divorced, and she said the same thing. Like, she was a virgin when they got married and sex was horrible, very similar situation as what I was in. And now that she's divorced and she's single, but she is dating somebody, they're not married, and the sex is incredible, she tells me. So it's, you can have good sex, people.
Right.
Outside of marriage or inside of marriage, but it's not always everything that they tell you in the IFB or in your church.
Yeah, it's true. And it's not gonna destroy your life. Like, I feel like the emphasis is just put on there too much that if you do this outside of marriage, it's gonna somehow destroy your life. Where the idea that somehow sex in marriage couldn't destroy your life. I think we talked about this in one of the episodes where the analogy was always like sex like a fire. If it's outside of the fireplace, it's gonna burn up and destroy your life. But then sex inside the fireplace is like marriage, and it's gonna be warm and cozy. But you know what? I'll tell you what, you can have a fire at the stove or a fire pit outside. There's so many other places there are fires. And it's just such a dumb analogy, but it again goes back. I think even the name purity culture, it means it distills it down to one basic idea, and there can be no deviation from it. And then, which means that there's no room for any error, which is a lot to put on your plate and a lot to have to uphold those standards. It's ridiculous.
So much pressure and obligation. And then you're in fear of, what if I do something wrong? Or what if I mess up? Is God still going to love me? Am I still going to be taken up in the rapture? That's literally would think these things growing up. Am I going to be left behind?
You know, when before we got married, me and my husband were messing around, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what if Jesus comes back right now and sees me? You have no idea just the pressure that is on a person and just the worry that is there that somehow Jesus is going to come back and catch you doing something inappropriate. And it's so dramatic and so scary, because you're always
while listening to rock and roll music.
Oh,
Susie.
yes.
Also that.
So true.
Yeah.
I think the first time I smoked a cigarette, I was like, oh my gosh, I better smoke this fast in case Jesus or drink that drink really fast, because Jesus could come back. And then you don't want to just be caught doing something, caught with your pants down or whatever.
Yeah, literally, that is what they teach.
It's so crazy. It's so stressful. Like, I feel like I know, and When we have these conversations, like you and I in our stories, and we've shared some, I don't know if I've ever told this story, but one of the things that my family used to justify really bad behavior is the idea that a train will always go into the station. Have you heard that? Once you get the train on the tracks, it will always go into the station.
I don't think I've heard that. No.
Yeah, that must be like a really, that must have just been an idea passed around by predators,
Mm.
pedophiles, maybe even,
What
where,
is that? What's the meaning behind it though?
so once the train gets on the tracks, so once a guy starts thinking about sex,
Mm.
always go all the way into the station. So this is an episode where if you're watching on YouTube, you're about to see me be like, here's the train and it's gonna go into the station.
Oh, is that what they meant?
Yeah, every time. Like it would always go into the station. Like that's the woman is the state.
Okay.
Gosh,
Oh, wow.
it
Okay.
just constricts my throat from saying what the station
Oh
is.
my gosh.
The train. Yeah.
Yeah.
So crazy where this train would, once you get the train on the tracks, it'll always go into the station.
Wow.
What I've come to realize is like with the stuff that I grew up with, like one, guys are not trains and women are not stations, and so they
Mhm.
have breaks, they can control it.
You know what's
Um,
crazy though, Susie, is like a lot of these pastors who would harp on like purity culture and don't have sex until marriage, and girls, if you cause a man to lust after you and they fall into lust and you're ruining their life and it's your fault and all this,
right.
you find out later that a lot of those pastors and preachers, they were caught up in their own scandals and stuff that they were sexually doing
Yes.
within the church. It's
That's
crazy.
right.
And
Yeah,
really what it comes down to is they're just projecting.
they totally are. Who was that? There's just been some big scandals of that stuff. But
Yeah.
I think it happens even all that on a local level, like in all the smaller churches too. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Where it's the pastor who's going on it and he's having an affair with his secretary,
Yeah.
or again, it's pedophile. There's so many different things, or he's got a porn addiction or whatever. And it's not just like a little amount of porn, it's like way over the top, total
Yeah.
addiction. Like you just can't stop watching it. Again, I feel like there are certain pastors who talk about penis homes who could be like, their wife is just like, please stop talking so much about sex. We're trying to eat dinner. Or stop talking about all the porn or whatever. There's so many
Yeah.
times that they're just obsessed with it. These guys like
Yeah.
don't even seem to be able to live a functioning normal life. All they're doing is involved in their own.
Mhm.
It's like they're preaching to themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's that projection. And I think that if you have a pastor or a preacher that comes and speaks at your church, or a youth group leader or whatever, and they're just every week harping on how the girls are dressing and
Right.
how the kids should be acting and talking about sex and talking about purity, I would avoid that person, because I think that is just a giveaway that they're projecting their own issues
Yeah.
onto everyone else.
Yeah, so true. That's a really good way to end this episode, and the idea, be on the lookout for that stuff.
Yeah.
We talk about red flags, like they're the ones actually that are obsessed about it. It's not all like
Mm.
women just trying to get by with daily lives, or even the teenage boys who like they're just being themselves. But these grown men from the pulpit going on about this stuff, they're the ones with the real problem.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's it's interesting because we have a lot of guests that are coming on, and like I said, they ended up in these homes where they were told they were bad because they'd already done a lot of this stuff, or even within the church, like what you were talking about, like it's being put down for the things that happened to them or the things that they did, just made it seem like there's no redemption and no way to ever get yourself out of whatever hole has been dug. It's
Mhm.
just sad because that's not the truth. Like the truth
It
is,
is not the truth. Yeah.
so to recap, sex is fun, and it's great. And even if it happens outside of marriage, it's just life, and you'll be able to go on living. It's not the end of the world. And or the rapture for that stuff.
Yeah. Sex is good with the right person.
Yeah, thank you. That's about
yeah. Because it was not good with my ex-husband, but
thank you. I appreciate you pointing that out. You're absolutely right. That's a better way to say it. With the right person. And right now I'm staring at some of our workbooks for the process of healing. And like we talk about that, like consent and sex and the importance of it. And I will tell you, there's a really cool little video called Consent and Tea. We were talking about the Baptist tea. Have you heard of Consent and Tea? On YouTube. It's such a great little video. And this goes along with, if you're going to read and learn up on sex, like the Karma Sutra and any other types of books or whatever, or good romance novels. But then this little video is so cool because it talks about how consent for sex is a lot like offering a friend or a partner tea. Like if they fall asleep when they said yes to wanting tea, don't try to give them tea. And it's like little stick figure drawings of the teas falling out of the mouth because they can't drink the tea. They're asleep. Or if they've been drugged or drink too much, do not give them tea. Like, it's such a cute little video because it really helps just clarify it of no matter what they're wearing, that doesn't mean they want tea. Not too many earrings. That doesn't mean you are saying yes to tea in a tea top there or whatever.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's super cute. But you can find it on YouTube, and they have one even for kids, like talks about consent, but in a way kids can understand it.
Well, I think we had a really good discussion today, and our episodes are always, we always find the humor in the craziness, don't we? Oh gosh, it's so good to laugh though about it and realize that I think sometimes there's just so much emphasis put on the negative and not enough on the positive. And I think that we really looked at both sides of the coin today, and I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion. And if you want us to talk about it more or some specific subject, you can always message us on our social media outlets. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. We would love to hear your feedback on this episode and any other episodes you would like us to talk about, any subjects you'd like us to talk about. We'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Healing is a process, a journey to be experienced, not just a destination.
You are not alone in this. It's okay to take your time, explore different perspectives, and find what resonates with you. Healing takes courage, and we believe in you.
Together, we can enjoy the ride.